Hi, I'm Bobby Small. This is Craig Mason.
Hi, I'm Craig Mason, and we are Team
Go!
Coneheads. Woo! we have our own, Team Coneheads. So we represent Team Coneheads in Colorado. Actually, the Coneheads is now a national team. We've just added Team Coneheads in the Philadelphia area with our sister chapter is headed up by the captain there, Craig Stillman. So that chapter is getting started. I believe their ride is called the Waves
to the city?
Waves to Shore. Yeah, I think it's Waves to Shore. So Craig Stillman, if you're watching, welcome aboard with your new chapter, and we're looking forward to getting your new jerseys. New Jersey. So we're excited to add that second chapter, and in fact, there's a couple other chapters that I'm really hoping come online. So it's the Seattle chapter, headed up by Tad Haas, hopefully, and also the LA chapter, hopefully headed up by Stephen Woods. So I'm talking to both of you. I have your jerseys. All you got to do, low price of a kid's cone, just slap it on.
A couple of plastic ties, and you're there.
And you're good to go. Because I know these guys ride. I mean, it's just a question of, got some cable ties here. It's all you got to do, guys.
Yep.
So, yeah.
All right. So, Craig, 29th ride coming up.
29th.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about how the Coneheads started? I mean, I know, but people out there will want to know how the Coneheads got started.
Well, let's see. 29th ride. So some buddies of mine, Greg Hoggett and Paul Schwapek, said, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And I said, nothing. Said, how'd you like going on a long bike ride? And I'd never been on a ride longer than about 12 miles. So they let me borrow a ladies 10 speed.
About your speed.
And, I rode Bike MS for the first time. Back then it was $150 that you had to raise. And I raised the minimum. And so I rode 150 miles in 2 days, very difficult back then. And it was super fun. We got to camp out, I think it was in Colorado College. That's back when it was called Go for the Gorge. And so I raised the bare minimum, and I just thought it was super fun. I thought the people were cool. And, I did not know anyone with MS. And I didn't do it for the cause. People were like, oh, you must have known someone with MS. And I didn't. I just did it for the beer drinking and the fun of riding. And I started biking into work at that point. I used to work at Great West Life. So I lived in Littleton, and I biked it was 13 miles each way. So it was a good way to get exercise. And I just started bicycling, and it was super fun. And so right around the 2000 time frame, myself, Dave Brereton, and Rob Brereton, we were looking for the three of us were biking, and we wanted to form a team. So we formed a team called Team T-Rex. And in fact, your cone, if you want to show everybody your cone, is one of the Brereton, if you take it off and show them the back. So one of the Brereton brothers decided that we wanted to call the team Team T-Rex for transportation expansion. So he created a helmet that had a bunch of cones that sort of went like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, right?
All right.
So we called ourselves Team T-Rex, and we put on workman's vests, and we sort of, decked ourselves out like we're working on the transportation expansion thing that was happening on I-25, right? So, we made up this name. It was just very topical at the time, right? So we started biking, and people started yelling at us. They're like, hey, Coneheads. And after about the 50th person, we're like, we were correcting them. We're like, hey, we're Team T-Rex. We don't understand. That's what we registered. About the third rest stop, I said, guys, I guess we're changing our name to Team Coneheads because no one's getting this. Right. What's funny about this, if you think about it, it's just a kid's soccer cone. And we learned early on that the easiest way to do this is these, these cable ties. Because, we've tried the sandwich bag things. And
oh, right, they fall off.
They fall off. And, what else is funny is in the old days, we used to put the solid cones. And when the wind hits you, it kills your neck, right?
Yeah.
So then what we learned, I don't know if you can see this on camera, but we cut out to make them even more aerodynamic than they are. Yours doesn't have any.
Yeah, you've modified yours further.
Yeah, so I've cut it out pretty severely. So you can cut this out pretty good, so the wind hardly catches it. Because in the old days, I didn't have hardly any cutouts. And what would happen to me is I'd be biking, and the wind would catch it, and I'd be like, right? And so sometimes you'd even hear it whistling. You'd be riding I'm like, what the hell is that, right? So yeah, so it's been an experience. Warren Kruger is one of our bikers. and he actually cut off a full traffic cone. He was super heavy on his head. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So yeah, it's been quite an experience, and you know, it is hilarious when you ride down the street, because I wear my cone full time, right? And little kids, their mouths drop. They don't know how to act. It's the funniest thing. Like they don't know what to say. They're like, right? Sorry. And women laugh, like to a woman, like she just start laughing. And guys, they always say things like, you know, did you lose a bet? Or,
right.
Or you know, so I get the funniest comments from people that are like, did you lose a bet? Or, you know, is that a dunce cap? Or, you know, so they just simply, it's a great conversation starter.
Yep.
The team has gone from 3 people. When we started using these, we went from 3 to 8 to 16, and I think this year we're going to hit 40. So
I was going to say, I was going to ask you how many people started, and you know, knowing where we are now. And what do you think you've raised over the course of your 29 rides, going from $150 minimum to, you know, thousands of dollars a year now?
Yeah, so I personally, last year I raised I think $8,400 myself. The team itself last year raised $74,000. I set a goal this year of $100,000, and I think over time, I think the team's probably at, if I had to guess, at least $500,000. And what I really should do is, with the MS Society, I should probably ask them to run all the records. I would say we're definitely over $250,000 and probably closer to $500,000. So
yeah, I mean, just since I've been riding, we've probably hit over $250,000 in the last 4 or 5 years, because
yeah.
we've been at $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 each year.
Yeah, yeah. So what's nice about our team is, you know, there's a number of people that have MS, so that actually physically ride on team, yourself included, and then there are definitely people that have spouses, sisters. There's at least 6 of those people on our team.
I think something you said earlier was interesting. You said you didn't, you know, your first ride, you didn't know anybody. But I think I found over the course of, you know, being diagnosed and then being a part of the team, that it's actually amazing how many people you either meet who have MS or who have a close relative with MS, a brother or a mother, that it really does affect, you know, a lot of families. You know, it's fairly pervasive.
Well, you know, one of the things about that I remind some of the new riders is that this is, you know, it's a fun ride. Like, you know, our team is really fun. Like, you know, they enjoy drinking beer and they enjoy biking, right? But I like to remind them that this is a fundraising event that happens to be a bike ride. And the other funny thing too is that the more that I do the ride, and I do meet people that have MS, and I look at how it impacts their lives. And when I started biking MS, I think there was 1 or 2 drugs in 1989. That's when I started my first ride. This will be my 29th year. 29, I think it's 29. And then now there's something like 14 with 4 more drugs in trial. So it's, I mean, the fundraising that we do goes direct. I think something like some crazy statistic, like 90% of the money. They do a really good job of optimizing how they spend the money. So there's just an incredible amount of research and you know, treatment and things like home care, and just an incredible amount of help with people that have MS and then their families to help support them in things like, you know, the wheelchairs and the rides and the groceries and, you know, and the physical research and the data science.
And even just the coping, I mean, you know.
And even coping and the counseling, and the buddies, you know, just you know, mentors and those sorts of things. So it's been quite a journey, I think.
Yeah.
How do you find more about Team Coneheads? Well, first of all, you can go to the National MS Society's website for the
Colorado ride.
The Colorado ride. Yep. Now there are rides all across the United States. For information on Team Coneheads, you can certainly reach out to myself, Bobby, Small, or any Conehead. There's a bunch of us. And of course, as you're driving down the street, if you see one of us, we are very noticeable. In fact, we will be at the Boulder. You will see some of us there. You will see some of us
Elephant Rock.
At the Elephant Rock ride, so that is June 3rd. You will actually see a bunch of us at the Highlands Ranch Beer Festival, but we will not be riding. We'll be practicing.
Practice riding. Kind of like, it's like a Monty Python thing. We'll be
well, more like practicing for the beer garden.
That's true too. You're right.
You have to prep your liver. In
A
equal
lot
parts.
goes into that liver prep.
Yeah, a lot. Certainly, you know, like we said, the focus is it is a fundraiser, so we would appreciate, you know, your contribution to multiple sclerosis. So certainly, you know, one of the interesting things I'm doing this year is the most intimidating thing for a lot of riders is not actually the ride, it's the fundraising.
That's true.
So I learned this year, we actually, you and I, and many people have the ability to move funds around to other new riders. So what I've been doing, the reason why I'm losing to you, is I've been moving my own funds to new riders. And so I think that's a great way to encourage new riders. So if you're thinking about riding for Bike MS, you know, sort of get over that whole, oh my gosh, I got to fundraise, I got to ask people for money. We can certainly help you. We can move funds to you, and you can, you know, it takes a little bit of the pressure off new riders, and that's a big deal. Yeah, we are actively looking for people to start up their own Conehead chapters, and literally all it is you slap a cone on, and all of a sudden you're popular. That's about as hard as it is.
Yeah.
So both of us are top 100 fundraisers for multiple sclerosis, and I definitely have some strategies, and you have some strategies. Why don't you tell me about what you have found successful as far as fundraising goes?
Well, for me, the fundraising has been really, you know, number one, I have MS, so you know, I've reached out to family and friends, and you know, they've been really supportive. So I do typically a once a month email asking for support. You know, not begging, but being very direct and saying, hey, you know, this is what the disease is. Here's how it affects me. Here's how it affects, you know, thousands and thousands of others across the country. I mean, I've been lucky. I was diagnosed with MS in 2005 and probably had MS starting in 2003 when I look back to some of the symptoms I had, some numbness and some loss of strength and some cognitive issues back to that time period. And so I can use that within my fundraising to kind of point out kind of how this affects me. But again, I like to point out also, they're the people, like, you know, there's varying degrees. I have a very mild case of MS. There are people who have progressive MS that are in wheelchairs, and people who are bedridden with MS. So there's this wide range, and so you use that kind of real life, you know, statistic and to get the word out. And I think you made a point earlier, you know, at 89%, it's one of the top rated, you know, charities in the country. You know, most of the charities are spending a lot more on overhead. And so this is one where they do spend a lot of the money within the society and locally. So when we're fundraising for Colorado, we're fundraising for them locally here. So the money we raise here goes to help somebody locally who may need to have a ramp built so they can wheel themselves into their house, or to get maybe some counseling and medication, or, you know, some additional, you know, equipment they might need, you know, to function on a daily basis. And on the bigger side, like you said, the research that they're putting in, like when I was diagnosed, there were 3 medications. They were all injectable, and they were all awful. They had side effects, and I started on one, and I immediately had, you know, very bad side effects and went off of it. And because they affect your liver and all kinds of other body, you know, functions, it took me almost a year to pull off completely, and then to a point where I could even start taking medication again. And so it's nice now that they've developed medications which are not injectable. As a matter of fact, most of them are now oral, or there's infusions. There's medication. You know, prior to last year, there was no medication for people with progressive MS. So this year, or last year, they brought to market a medication that meant to help people with progressive MS to stop that progression. So those are just, I mean, amazing, phenomenal strides, and you read every year about it, and it just keeps getting better and better. So that makes me want to do more and more. So I asked honestly, and I asked directly for those funds from my friends and family. And like you, I do it in a very small potatoes kind of way. I mean, you look at a lot of the top fundraisers, and you check them out, and they're like getting $10,000, $20,000 donations. And, you know, you and I are $50, $35, $20. So we've been lucky to have a lot of, you know, a multitude of support across, you know, the board, and just keep looking for creative ways, you know, to fundraise as well. You know, I've done a lot. You do videos. I've done a lot of videos where I embarrass myself for the cause. You know, I have no problem doing that, and people seem to enjoy giving more money for that. So I'll keep doing that, you know, forever and ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you know, this being a long-term thing for me, I've found, for example, that I've learned a lot about fundraising. And so, for example, personalized stories seem to help. So you got to use some caution. Like, you've been very open about your own story.
Yep.
But there's a lot of people that suffer from MS. Like, I know some folks that have it but don't want anyone to know that they have it. So
it was a big deal when I was diagnosed. I was working, and part of my initial relapse, or part of the initial whatever I had, it was cognitive, and I could not function for about a week. And and once I found out what was happening, I was afraid to tell my boss. I was like, "What? Are they going to fire me because now they maybe can't think I can't work?"
Well, especially in your line of work, you're in IT,
right?
Where you need your brain.
It's a lot of computing power, and a lot of brain power. So,
right.
No, for certain, I could. It's a common theme with people with MS not wanting to divulge.
One of the interesting dichotomies I have as a team captain is seeing that there are people that just want to pay their $400 and not ask people to raise money, because there's this, over time I've been trying to train myself to be in sales. And when you're in sales, I mean, the key to being in sales is you have to ask people for money. And it's an uncomfortable thing that I've had to teach myself. And fundraising is, guess what? Asking people for money. And that there is a level of discomfort that people have. And it is, I've had great athletes that I know can do the ride without a question. Say, there's no flipping way I'm going to do this ride. And I'm like, but it's for the, it's for the good of humanity. They're like, I could care less because I have to ask people for money.
Yeah.
And it's so intimidating, right? And so it's just, if there's a way that we could remove that stigma or that fear of simply asking for money. So I think I've been talking to the MS people, and I really think I'm onto something with this whole, because you and I are already top fundraisers, right? So if we simply move our own funds and say, you know what, I'll just relieve you of that burden. Why don't you just come out and enjoy yourself? That really goes a long way. The other thing is the personalized stories. So if you can find people that have MS that can share their story anonymously, maybe, and say, look, this is how MS impacts me, and this is what your and it's not this broad generic, hey, MS really impacts me, please give. It's not as impactful as, this is my story and this is how it impacted me, and like you said, your cognitive functions, and this really impacted me at work and I could lose my job. That is a real person saying this real story. And I find that is more impactful than just saying, hey, give me some money.
Yep. And I've changed my tone over the course of the 12, I've done 13 rides this year. I started in DC and then joined the Coneheads 4 or 5 years ago. But I was kind of I took the path of kind of humor and not really divulging much of my own story, because I felt almost embarrassed that, here I know there are people who are worse off with MS than I am. And to me, to sit and talk about how, oh, poor me, my arm is numb sometimes. Sometimes I can't walk. I wobble when I walk. Whatever whatever small, flare-ups I might have. But I found that over the course of the years, it made sense to start sharing some of that information as well, because it is real, and that makes it real for somebody. So. Well,
and I think those people need a champion. You know what I mean? Like they need you to be their voice, because they may not have a voice, or maybe their situation's so bad that they can't share everything, but they need you.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll end with that I know I'm grateful to my sponsors, and I'm sure you are.
I mean, it's been, like I said, 12 rides. You're at 29, and I've had great sponsors from the beginning, and sponsors that have been with me all those 12 years, which is amazing.
The longevity thing. You talked about, we have a bunch of small donors that over time stick with us. I realized, I broke the email system of the MS Society. I have too many people on my email. I had 1,600. They can only handle 1,000, right? So I'm very grateful to the people that stick with me and the ones that are thinking about it. Please stop thinking. We need the money.
Yeah.
And
if
we're
it isn't
very grateful.
Someone in the Coneheads, somebody that has MS, I guarantee it. And so
Yeah.
Happy to have you join the team, and happy to have you join the cause.
So thank you for all that you do, and we will keep riding as long as we're able. And I guess that's it. So live from Conehead Central.
Cone on.
Cone on. All right, have a good one.